Now, we have some brochures up here that you can take home with you if you're interested. Give a little information. At the end of the meeting, Arthur, are you going to run Sierra Club 101? All right, our treasurer, Arthur King, is going to be in that corner after the meeting doing a little thing we call Sierra Club 101, where it will take 5 to 10 minutes, right?
Yep.
And he'll tell you everything you always wanted to know, but were afraid to ask about the Sierra Club. And then, at the end of the meeting, we will all go, if you want to the Blue Goose up on Midway, just below Beltline, and we will commiserate. No, I mean communicate.
Don't they have margaritas on special tonight?
They do.
They do.
$2 margarita.
Oh, $2 margaritas tonight. Okay, I'm going to need a couple of those. All right, announcements before we get to our programs. Dick, you want to go first with the Conservation Committee stuff?
Yes, please. Go ahead. Julie Bryant will talk about the Chico Mountain issue first.
This is a mess, as you can see, and it towers over a community of African American people south of Loop 12 on 310. It evidently does not meet zoning, and it violates numerous provisions of the city, like having filed an occupancy notice when they set up. So it's a really out of control thing. It's shedding rainwater into 5 Mile Creek, which is a tributary of the Trinity. So, for once, hands are joined across the racial divide in Dallas between whitish North Dallas and mostly blackish Southern Dallas. This has been going on for about at least a year and a half among the groups on both sides that favor environmental health. And this is an opportunity to learn more about it, led by 3 of the African American community leaders who are participating with Sierra Club and learning more and getting training. So, good chance to learn more. And we'll be covering it in Green Source DFW next week if you're not able to participate.
Most of you remember Pastor Eugene Cahey, who spoke to us. He was the pastor in Sand Branch when we were helping with all the cleaning up the tires and things like that. And you probably know that he died the last day of February in a suspicious fire that's being considered for arson, along with his wife and his daughter. And now we've reached out to find out how that community is going to go forward. It turns out they have a strong water board in place with actions that will hopefully finally get the water brought. But we have been invited by their community activities group to supply a volunteer member who would meet with them and help them in the planning of all their activities for that community going forward. We hope someone will feel they want to do that, and if you do, call Chris or me. Our numbers on the conservation page of the Sierra Club website, and we'll tell you more about it. Put you in touch with the person that you can talk to about what's involved. Earth Day Oak Cliff is coming up. What is it, the 24th of April? You'll hear more. 14th? Oh, okay, yes, that's right. When we'll have a call for volunteers to come man tables for an hour or two, whatever you can do. You sit there and tell people about the Sierra Club. We'll have a lot of people there. So think about volunteering for that when the call comes out soon. Maybe you know about the walk that Chris has put together called What Does Climate Change Mean for Dallas, where she walks through Dallas and around, stops at every corner, tells you 3 remarkable sentences about something related to the environment that's going on or has happened or will happen at that corner. It's a really remarkable walk. She's giving it very frequently on Saturday and Sunday, so watch Facebook and the webpage and come. You'll really enjoy that. The last announcement concerns David Griggs' political announcement. He had to go out, can't talk tonight, he'll be back, but he wants to tell you that the PAC that decides which candidates for public office we will support is meeting in a couple of weeks. In early April, he'll announce the results of that, as well as the date of a fundraiser for the PAC. So keep watching for those.
Bill, you want to give a little spiel on the outings committee?
Few things real quick. We get out of my track back there. I was tempted to climb over the table, but that's probably considered a nap.
We've got a couple of things coming up in the near future that you're probably interested in. Towards the end of April, Liz is doing a car camp trip at, where is it?
Colorado Bend.
Colorado
State
Bend
Park.
State Park.
Hill Country.
I won't be able to make this one, but I made a couple of them last. It's a really neat area. We've got a group campsite reserved, so you camp maybe 100 feet from your car. And it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of neat day hikes ranging from real easy to some that, we'll pick them up, put them down. There's a lot of neat things to explore. It's just a real relaxing weekend. That's Colorado Bend State Park, and it's towards the end of April. And then in May, we'll be doing our wilderness navigation class. It's 2 nights. It's in the outings list. It's 2 nights. It's a Tuesday and a Wednesday night.
May 7th and 8th.
May 7th and 8th. It's not 2 separate classes. It's part 1 and part 2. So you have to make both of them, or you'll get a failing grade in the class. But we really try to teach you how to go into the wilderness and always know where you're at, and how to get back out, and how to plan a trip. A lot of things that your GPS just won't do for you. And then the weekend after that, either Saturday or Sunday, depending on what the people in the class want to do, we'll do a short practice walk, usually up at Arbor Hills, where you have to use your navigation skills to find the place. But it's a lot of fun. We get a lot of really good feedback. We've had people tell us that it kept them from getting lost in New York City. So wherever you go, it'll help you find your way in the woods. We just got back from a really interesting trip. We did a beginner backpack class at Palo Pinto State Park, out about 70 miles west of Fort Worth. And you've probably never heard of Palo Pinto because it's not open to the public yet. The Park Service acquired the land several years ago, but our state legislature, in its infinite wisdom, has never seen fit to fund the development of the park. So it's not open to the public. But we got permission to go in there for the weekend and do a beginner backpack trip. We were the only people in the park, and we had half of their entire staff along with us. Jimmy Ship was his name. So it was a lot of fun. We enjoyed it. It's not the Weminuche Wilderness, but on the other hand, it's 2 hours from Dallas. So take a look at our outings list on the website. It changes from day to day as leaders submit new outings. And you'll be seeing things come up for the spring and the summer. So go to our website, click on outings, and look at the outings list and see what we got to offer for you. And there's some details on our board over here. Next.
Liz, you want to make a little announcement?
Thank you and welcome everyone. My name is Liz Whelan and I chair what's called ICO, or Inspiring Connections Outdoors. A lot of you have already heard about it, but the whole idea is those of us adults make outings possible for kids, mostly kids, youth that without us would most likely not have the opportunity. This is our busy season. We have 3 outings coming up, one this Saturday, one the 30th of March, and one April 13th. And we would be most welcome to new volunteers. So if you're interested, I'm at the end of the table. I have a sign-up sheet. You do need to check with me ahead of time. It's not like our day out hikes where you just show up. I do need to get a little information and talk with you ahead of time. But it's just a really wonderful experience, very rewarding. This is how we get the future for our environment, is to get these kids outdoors and let them have fun, and also teach them why it's so special and how to enjoy it. So I would be most welcome to any volunteers that are interested, either for those dates or for others. Just let me know. I am also on the website under the ICO. So if by chance you're not sure about it tonight, but want to contact me later, you can do that then. And I just want to follow up on Bill's announcement. For Colorado Bend, that's a limited number of people. So it's a big site and we can take a pretty large group, but it does require reservations ahead of time with forms and your payment. So it's, again, not something you can just show up for. So keep that in mind as you make your plans. Thank you.
With those of you who filled out an interest form that you got up here at the beginning, hold that up. Kurt, would you please pass those up to the front so we can gather them up and hunt you down later? Paul, are there any other announcements we need to make before we start our programs? Nobody? Okay then, Paul, do you want to introduce our speakers for tonight?
Yes.
Sometime tonight, Paul. He's getting there.
Thank you. All right. And hello, everyone. My name is Paul. I'm one of the chair programs for Dallas Sierra Club, and right today we have NSYNC Exotic. Sorry.
And the other one is the gardening.
Yes, but Angela will be doing the this first presentation today. She has been a volunteer in NSYNC Exotic since 2010. And on the board since board of directors since 2016. And she's very passionate about the wildlife conservation and education. So if you can just please welcome her and give a round of applause.
Do it. Dear.
Hang on. Just close the box.
Okay.
Okay. I'm trying to make sure this works for you. Okay, that part works. And, okay, so it's all working.
All right.
So, go ahead.
All righty. There are more tigers in captivity in America than there are left in the wild. Yeah, let that sink in for just a second. My name is Angela Culver. I'm the media director with NSYNC Exotics. We are a wildlife rescue and educational center. We are located in Wiley, Texas, and our mission is to provide a caring, safe haven to some of God's most beautiful creatures. We put their needs above all else. The old, the maimed, the unwanted can all find sanctuary here.
Hold it real close to your mouth.
Okay. So where we began, in 2000, Vicki Cahey, who is our founder, was working as a veterinary technician at a local veterinarian office. And someone brought in a cougar who was their pet for treatment. Her name was Tahoe. So the veterinarian treated her, called the owners to come pick her up, and they never came back. Poor Tahoe was abandoned. So what in the world are you going to do with a pet cougar? Their options were pretty limited. There weren't sanctuaries, there wasn't a place to put her. Their option was euthanasia. So Vicki, not wanting this poor cougar, who through no fault of her own had ended up there, to be euthanized, so she decided to take it upon herself to go through the steps necessary to be able to keep Tahoe legally. She did such a good job with Tahoe that soon she was contacted about another cougar named Ranger, and then after that came a tiger cub named Kenya. So where we are now, we have 75 exotic cats and 2 ring-tailed lemurs, who we don't normally rescue other animals besides felines, but these 2 were a special circumstance. We consider them honorary cats. People often ask us where we get our cats from. A lot of them were quote unquote pets from private owners. We get them from roadside zoos, we get them from private breeders, we get them from entertainment facilities, places that do what we call cub petting. It's basically a glorified puppy mill for big cats. And circuses, things like that. We even have some animals that have been taken out of the wild. So we have several bobcats that were previously, they were wild born, but due to human imprinting, would no longer be releasable. So a lot of people think it's really, really cool to take a picture with a tiger. Oh, I went overseas and on this trip they had this opportunity and it was a conservation thing and I could pay and get my picture taken with a tiger cub, or I could pay to feed it or play with it or swim with it, and it all goes back to conservation. So a little bit about the reality of this. It's not conservation. It goes to line people's pockets. The reality is these tiger cubs are ripped away from their mothers when they are days to weeks old. They are malnourished to be kept small. They are sedated to be kept docile. They are only legally allowed to be able to be shown for about 100 days. After that, these cubs either go back into the system and become breeders themselves, or they will be sold to the highest bidder, or they'll be euthanized. So conservation, this is not what this is. What can you do? Obviously, don't participate. Educate those people around you. Also educate people that reputable sanctuaries do not allow contact between the public and these animals. So, oh, but it's a legitimate sanctuary and I can still pay to go play with these animals or pay to get my picture taken. Not a legitimate sanctuary. Think about where their focus is. Are they doing what's best for the animal, or are they doing what's going to bring in revenue for them? Let's talk a little bit about white tigers. People often believe that they are a separate subspecies. Not true. They are produced when there is a recessive gene that is expressed, and it's a Bengal tiger specific recessive gene. So true sanctuaries also do not breed. There are enough people out there that are breeding these cats for their own personal use. They are what's labeled as generic tigers. So with the exception of white tigers, which are Bengals, the rest of these could be a mixture of Bengal and Sumatran, Bengal and something else, who knows what they are. So these actually do not contribute positively to conservation at all. So this is a picture of Zara, and this is a tiger cub. So we rescued Zara and her mate Assad in January of last year. And on March 6th, surprise, little tiger cub. She was pregnant when we rescued her, because little Kylo Ren was born 47 days post-rescue. Tiger gestation period's 93 to 112 days. So we didn't do it. Also, we spay and neuter our animals because, like I said, enough other idiots out there breeding, we don't need to help. Sanctuaries that, like ours, that are there to rescue and to save are already overpacked, overfilled with animals that need to be rescued. There are more that need to be rescued every year than there is a space to rescue. These are two other tiger cubs that we have rescued. You may have heard the story or seen in the news about this little guy who was found being smuggled across the border from Mexico. They found him in a black duffel bag. Border Patrol agents saw 3 men trying to cross the border illegally from Mexico with a black duffel bag. The men saw the Border Patrol agents, headed back south across the border, dropped the duffel bag. So the Border Patrol agents go over, unzip the duffel bag, and I'm sure that a tiger was the last thing they expected to find in a duffel bag. This tiger was incredibly lethargic. He was dehydrated. His temperature was dangerously high. Had it been another about half an hour, he wouldn't have made it. He was taken to Brownsville Zoo, where they were able to give him fluids, bring his body temperature down, and he stayed there and was part of an exhibit on wildlife trafficking for several months. Then he came home to InSync. This little guy, so this one we have named Kenobi. The white tiger is Kylo Ren. I don't know if any of you are nerds out here and sensing a theme. This one is Anakin. They are collectively known as the Jedi Boys. This one, Anakin, we received a call from a facility out in Amarillo. He was 5 months of age when we got the call, and they said that they didn't have time for him. Who doesn't have time for an adorable 5-month tiger? That's okay if you don't have time for him when he's cute and fuzzy. You definitely won't have time for him as an adult. So yes, we will absolutely, definitely take him. Through a long and slow and very calculated process, we were able to introduce these 3 boys together. So they now live together, they play together, they practice hunting and pouncing and all of those skills that siblings out in the wild would practice with each other. So Kylo Ren he turned a year old in March. He's 198 pounds. Kenobi is 14 months old, 211 pounds. And little Anakin is 9 months and 129 pounds. And let me tell you, little Anakin will start trouble. He is not afraid. So how does this tie in with conservation issues? Well, you can learn a lot about some of the animals in the wild by coming to sanctuaries like ours. So when a small child gets 3 feet from a tiger or a lion or a leopard or a cougar or a bobcat, and they can look at its eyes and they can see how big its feet are. And they form this connection, this bond. And if they see that and they form this connection and this bond, they're gonna wanna help those animals. So by coming to sanctuaries like ours, they become future conservationists. So about urban bobcats, there's been, in the past few years, I'm sure you guys have all heard, there's been a huge uptick in sightings of bobcats in Plano, in Richardson, all over the place. We're building out. Bobcats were here first, so they have nowhere to go, but either move out further, which some of them do, or some of them adapt, because bobcats are highly adaptable creatures. They are the best pest control you could possibly ask for. They take out mice, they take out rats, they take out snakes, they take out bugs. All those things you don't want wandering in your brand newly built house, bobcats take care of them for you. Some people don't like bobcats in their backyard, and that's okay. They don't have to like bobcats, I guess. So the best thing to do if you don't want bobcats in your backyard, don't make it inviting. Don't leave pet food out for them. Turn on a radio to like news or talk radio. They don't like it. I don't either. Just generally don't make it an inviting place for them to be. Contrary to popular propaganda, they won't eat your children. They might have a go if you have a really small dog and leave it out for an extended period of time. Just watch it. Also about urban bobcats, some people want to remove them. Well, okay, you remove one bobcat, guess what? That territory is open for somebody else to move in. Say a mother bobcat has kittens. You remove the mother. Well, now you've doomed the kittens. They're gone, and when the kittens are dead, somebody else moves in. So, best thing to do, just let them be. Don't make your backyard super inviting. Let them do their thing. And sadly, it's best for them if they're scared of us. Because you may want to save that bobcat and you may want to protect it, but not everybody is as nice as you are. So, how can you help? You can come visit us. You can volunteer. You can like us on social media and share our posts. You can visit our website for more information. We also have upcoming events and regular events throughout the year. We are also open to the public every Saturday and Sunday. So we do not charge an admission fee since we are a nonprofit, but we do have a suggested donation if you would like to come help us out. Our next big, huge event is the Easter egg hunt on the 20th of April. It's our biggest event of the year. We have vendors, we have face painters, we have a bounce house, we have lots and lots of great opportunities to come get to know us, get to know the cats, and get to know what makes these animals so magnificent and why they should stay in the wild instead of behind cages. So I would like to say thank you for an opportunity to come visit us. I'll be around afterwards, also at the Blue Goose for any questions, comments, anything that you would like to discuss. I will be more than happy to talk with you, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Angela. Now, I'm going to have you introduce the next speaker.
Thank you. All right, up next is Jeffrey Ruska, and he is with Dallas County Urban Horticulturist, and he's from Texas A&M, and just welcome him. Thank you.
My mic here?
No, you need to use that mic.
Okay.
Here,
I'll give you this setup here. Okay, you just want to get to it yourself.
From the beginning. There we go. Okay, first I want to thank the Sierra Club for having me out and getting to visit with y'all a little bit. My name is Jeff Raska. I am your county horticulturist, appointed by the county commissioners to support Texas A&M University. And every county in the state has an agent. Every county in the state, the bigger urban counties have some county support. So that's what I do. I'm an urban horticulturist, and I'm an urban horticulturist that my primary goal, my primary functions are to feed hungry people. I do research on food, on how we can grow more food in our urban gardens. And I also work with all the South Dallas area with churches, community centers, and community gardens, setting them up, helping them out, giving them education. I educate the public, I educate y'all. And my bend on the educational process is to, let's quit poisoning the planet. Let's quit killing everything. Let's quit being stupid. Okay? Let's think smart. Let's think like Mother Nature does. Let's think like things happen naturally. And I always say this in all my talks when I'm talking to groups of citizens, not and students and such, because I teach at colleges. So I talk about conservation. We wouldn't have to conserve anything if we didn't screw it up. We screwed it up. Mother Nature's self-healing. Mother Nature doesn't mess up. Forest systems don't mess up. Ecosystems don't mess up. Then, if you don't belong in an ecosystem, you go away. You go extinct, something else happens and takes its place. And in ecosystems, especially forested systems and garden systems that we're going to talk about, everything works together. It's all a symbolic relationship. It all works together. We're trying to force in urban gardens, in our backyard gardens. I'm talking about landscapes and vegetable gardens and all that. And I'm talking about just normal citizens that want to have a few vegetables or want to have a pretty landscape or a yard. And I'm not a yard guy. You'll hear that later on. But we need to start thinking and processing this and start thinking of these setups and these urban environments. If we can capture one environment at a time and make one pristine environment at a time in a backyard, then we can make that backyard turn into that neighborhood. And that neighborhood will go into the community, and we can clean up, and we can actually quit putting so much nitrogen down the stormwater systems, because that's the biggest issue with me is sequester nitrogen, keeping nitrogen in the soil and not having it run down into our water systems. And you guys know this, I'm preaching to the choir on these parts, but the biggest offenders are going to be the yard people that want that beautiful green lawn. And the other big offender is actually people that grow vegetables, because vegetables go too far overboard with them. So we have an earth-kind concept, and that's when we'll talk about earth-kind gardening. Dr. Stephen George, who's on our research in Court Road. Anybody familiar with Court Road facility? They research grass, turf grasses. They used to research crepe myrtles. He started about 30 years ago doing research on roses. Roses were the most popular landscape plant. So what he tried to do was find 5 or 10 varieties of roses that didn't need any spray, because you had to spray them when they got black spot, because they didn't actually want to be here. They love Seattle, which is zone 8 also, but they don't like the heat. So when we got heat and humidity, they start getting black spot diseases, and one disease leads to another, and that leads to insect infestations. So he went to he took the peace rose as the standard rose against all others, and he just grew roses for 5 years. Put them out, we water them. When our earth-kind studies, we water them, we take care of them, but all we do is we compost the soil, get a good rich soil bed, and then we water them when it goes into drought. We don't water them very often, but when if it goes into a drought, that's 8-week period. If we've got 8 weeks with no water, we'll water it in the summertime. And that is going to have to live through it. Once we get to the end of these 5-year studies, we'll have a pretty good working idea of what really works in earth-kind programs and our programs here. So he started with that. So what it went into, and it developed into an earth-kind garden project. So it went into earth-kind gardening. So what can we do for the backyard gardener to quit using fertilizers, quit using pesticides, quit watering, we're running all the water down. I want water in the soil. I don't mind if you're using water and capturing water back and forth, but I don't want water going down the drains, and I don't want you washing your cars and things like that. We're not going to stop them from doing it, but it didn't help. It perpetuates it. If you're sitting there watering your garden and you're watering, you got a sprinkler system. Worst thing in the world are these sprinkler systems that have no brain, because they can't tell you if it's raining. They don't care if it's raining or not. You go in the cities, and we work with the cities and the counties, so you're going in the cities, and it'll be water in the mediums, and of course you'll get ice storms and all that, but you get water in the mediums and it's raining, for God's sakes. It's ridiculous. But they're working on it. City of Dallas has a new urban ag position. They just filled an urban agricultural position who's working with us, and we partner with the SMU Meadows Foundation. So we have the money to actually go into areas and to do water conservations and do actual soil conservations in South Dallas areas, but we also, under the auspice that we're going to build community gardens and we're going to feed people in their own neighborhoods. So we got a good market, we got a good team now in place, we got some setup in place, and we got the City of Dallas on the side. So City of Dallas, they're slow, and so is the county. I work for government, so we're all slow the way they go, but they're at least, they see the light bulb comes on. Now, the light bulb comes on, and 20 years later something happens. That's usually how it works, but that's just how it works. At least the light bulb's on now. At least there's something going forward to it. So we got an earth-kind gardening program. We got earth-kind that we do in typical backyard gardens. We also have earth-kind in viticulture. I have a vineyard over in Garland. I have 80 grapes that we're testing right now for the wine industry and for the backyard food markets. So we go on an earth-kind program. So in Garland there's a vineyard, and I've got an orchard. So I'm growing a lot of food, a lot of apples, and I'm growing peaches. What we're doing is we're growing varieties that we don't have to spray. 15, 20 years ago, you go on the website for any college, and A&M is Texas, Oklahoma State's Oklahoma, all of the land-grant universities have extension programs. We're just an education arm. I'm not teaching at College Station, I'm teaching here, and I'm teaching in Dallas County. So all the county, all the land-grant universities all across the country have an extension program. So we're all teammates, so we all work together. So we're testing grapes, and we used to go on the website and used to see prophylactic spray programs for fruit trees. This is probably 15, 20 years ago. And you'd spray every 2 or 3 weeks and just spray prophylactically. Now we don't do that anymore. That's a big thing that they always want to do in programs. They're doing other ways, and we're actually developing cultivars that are more insect resistant, more fungal resistance. So we're trying to grow fruit without the sprays. And without there, you're still going to get it. You go to the grocery store, you go to any grocery store, and you buy an apple, you know that apple's been sprayed, right? And you know that apple's also been coated with wax, right? Before it gets to you. We grow apples off the tree that we don't have to coat with wax anymore. We don't have to do that. It comes straight off the tree, goes into the processing system, and it goes. All our food we grow on our tests goes to food banks. So we just fill food banks up with them. But now we're going to get cultivars that actually give you clean food. You've heard of the clean food movement? Well, we're developing clean foods where we don't have to spray. We don't have to worry about insect damages and such. So that's what we're doing at A&M, and that's what we're doing in your county and in all the counties. But we're testing a lot more than most of the counties do, because we've got some resources. County Commissioner Commissioner Daniel has had a road and bridge site in Rowlett, or in Garland, and she didn't have any roads and had one bridge. So it used to be an old garage. They used to service all the trucks. So she decided to close the garage out. They moved the garage to Rockwall. And she said, what could we do with it? So she came to us and said, would you, if we made an education center, would you come and do research in our property? It's 13 acres. Absolutely, we will. So now she's developed that into a research center, an education center. It's got a huge classroom. It's got little cubicles set up so you can come in, and it's just a beautiful education center. We got the vineyard there, we got the orchard there. We have I've got 80 test beds for vegetables, which are tomatoes, and we're trying to produce more tomatoes less inputs, and that's what we're doing. That's what our whole goal is, less inputs, more food. So we've got a great research going on right here in the middle of Dallas County. So we're excited about that. We're happy about that. We've got it rolling now. So we've got that. So there's a lot of things going that people don't really realize. And I hear people a lot of bellyache and gripe about this crap and stuff. There's a lot of good people working in this direction, all over the place. We've got to connect more dots because we've got a lot of people all over the place spaced out. They're trying to do here without this resource, and they're trying to do without this resource. But we can tag together and put our resources together. So it's happening across Dallas County. And as it's happening, we want to preserve the ecology. We want to make sure that we're being clean with what we're doing. We want to make sure we're just going back to natural practices. So that's what Earthkind Gardening is. There's 10 concepts to Earthkind Gardening. And I want to go through those real quick. I don't know how long, what's our end time here? I see clock's 10 to 8.
I'll just keep going till you're done.
All right, well, that could be midnight, though, if I get going now. We're gonna be late, like, you want to, yeah, because you got $2 margaritas over there.
15 minutes.
So we'll get there. There's that 10 concepts of Earthkind Gardening. Earthkind Gardening is environmentally friendly gardening practices that we use nature. We look at forested systems, we look at woodland systems, we look at ecosystems, and we put those practices within our urban gardens, within our landscape beds, and within our production beds. So we can create very sustainable ecosystems in backyards, one at a time. All these slides you see are mine, by the way. That's my Earthkind gardens. Earthkind garden plants, all those plants rate very highly on Earthkind. Means that once I put them in, we don't have to water them. I don't water them in the summertime. I don't have to water them. And this is a transitional phase. This is I don't know where the button is. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna go backwards here. Yeah. Let's see what we got going here. Guys, I'm an Aggie, guys. Bear with me. You guys gotta bear with me on this one. So there we go. Okay. So now we want to go. All right, these are my gardens. This is a transitional phase. I can tell what time of the year it is because see the turf is starting to change color. I don't water my grass, by the way. I don't fertilize the grasses. I don't fertilize anything out here. The only thing we do fertilize, we fertilize our production tomatoes and all of our fruits that we're trying to produce. Not the trees, but the fruits themselves. The squash, the tomatoes, the peppers, we have to fertilize that to produce about 30 to 40 pounds of plant. We don't want 10 pounds, we want 40 pounds are our goals on all these plants. So we can really help people with it. And that's what we work with community gardens. We go into the gardens and we'll go to community gardens that need some help or need some education. We'll go down there and they're all excited. School gardens the same way. I've been putting school gardens, I put my first school garden in 1994. School gardens aren't new. They've been around a long time, way before our generations. School gardens were, every school had one because some of the neighborhoods down in Midlothian, my grandmother was, my great-grandmother was a pastor. Down in Midlothian. They were so poor that the schools had to grow the food to feed the kids because there wasn't food at home. So they had to have school gardens. So they had them back then. But I can tell that's a transitional because the sweet potatoes, those are sweet potatoes. Anybody grow sweet potatoes? They're starting to break. I can tell that's November too because I'm fixing to do it. By the time Thanksgiving comes around, I can harvest them. But these are just Earthkind plants, and I'm going to give you the websites. I got the websites on here. We've got a list of about 440 plants for this region, from flowers to trees to shrubs that meet Earthkind requirements. So that means once you've got them established, you don't have to do a whole lot with them. Now in drought situations, we have to water them, we have to supplement them. So about 8 weeks into a drought, yeah, you're going to have to give them a little supplemental water, but you don't have to drown them. And you don't have to waste water. You give them the water, they'll absorb it, and they keep the water, and they'll put it back up in the atmosphere. So you don't have to do that. But there's certain steps to get to this point where you can have these kind of gardens. First, there's 10 steps. Number one, prepare the planting area properly for what you're going to plant. If you're going to plant in your garden, and this is really typically a landscape garden, these are more of my gardens. If you're going to do a succulent garden or a low water garden, you're going to need to change the soils from mulch. You don't want to heavily mulch the soils. You got to understand which plant guild you're working with, because plant guilds are a set of plants that work together in a symbiotic relationships that came and evolved together. They evolved together over a million years or millions of years, and they work together still. So succulents would work together, cacti would work together, things like that. Desert willows would work in that environment, but you can't mulch that environment that way. You've got to make sure that that's going to be a dry, really well-draining environment. So you'll plant your landscapes in guilds or in packets where That bed is going to be a dry bed, so I'm not going to water it very much. I don't need to. This bed's going to be a more contemporary bed, like these garden plants here. They don't need a lot of water. They don't get water, supplemental water, but they're going to have a well mulched bed. So they have to have mulch to hold the moisture for them. So that's what we do. So you prepare the planting areas properly for what you're using. Create your garden using sun exposure, using and soil types, and you also want to make sure about your decisions or drainage. You can't have anything drain into them, but if I've got sunshine, if I want a vegetable garden, I've got my house, and I'm planting in my house. I'm teaching Saturday, so if I've got my house and I'm looking at my backyard and I don't have anything in my backyard, okay, and I want to grow vegetables, they have to go in a sunny spot. That dictates where they go, not me dictating where they go. I can't tell you how many schools over all these 25, 30 years have called, or I've gone out there and they put the garden under the tree so the babies won't get hot. They do. So the kids, I don't want the kids to get sunshine under the sun. God forbid if kids got vitamin D. That'd be the most, and that's what I tell them. I said, these kids would run around with vitamin D, their hair would be shinier, their skin would be nice, their bones would develop faster. Everything would work real well because vitamin D translates to calciums. So, but they don't know. You don't know what you don't know, so that's what we have to teach people to do it. So you've got to dictate. Your gardens in your backyards, your gardens in your environments, dictate what the plants need and what the plants have to be successful. If I put a vegetable garden in a semi-shaded area, I'm going to be fighting fungus forever. And then the first thing a homeowner wants to do is go get a fungicide and pour that fungicide on the plants and pour that fungicide in that garden, and you kill all that mycelium families. You kill all the microbial families that make these systems work, that make all life systems work. You're killing them in the soil. And then you start over again. It's never made sense to me that you'll go get a weed killer, or you go get a clover killer, and you put it on your lawn, and then you'll put nitrogen back on that lawn. You're killing a legume that would naturally die back in the summer anyway. What sense does that make? It makes no sense whatsoever. We're going to put nitrogen. We're going to put synthetic nitrogen mainly because they don't want to use organic. Organic's too slow. Organic won't green it up in a week. Organics would work long term. If they used organics, they wouldn't have to hardly use any, and they could use it long term. It'd be a lot cheaper, but they want green tomorrow. And the most unnatural ecosystem we could ever develop is a yard of Bermuda grass or a yard of San Augustine grass. Nowhere on this planet is there monocultural crops. Nowhere on the planet is there a monocultural ecosystem. Nowhere would there be a grass. And Bermuda's an African grass, a savanna grass in Africa that wants to grow naturally and wild, but it's mixed with a million other grasses. It's got a whole family of grasses it mixes with for it to be healthy. And it gives what it gives. And then the grasses with it will give nitrogen to it, so they work together symbiotically. That's how they work together. So we're going to take them, we're going to cut it about that tall, want a putting green in our yards. It's just not natural. And what they're doing is more and more nitrogen. You know how much nitrogen that grass actually gets when you put nitrogen on it? It gets about 0.5%. It gets nothing. So they're going to put bags and bags of nitrogen on that, and it goes right down. And they want to, and the biggest misnomer is, I want to get this out before it rains. What's it going to do? What's it going to do if you put granules out and it rains? Where's the granules going? They're going in and they're actually making algae blooms in our river systems, and algae blooms in our water systems, and it's killing the fish, and it's killing that natural ecosystem there. We do a lot of things that are pretty stupid, a lot of things that we do that, and I get these questions all the time about gardening. I'm going to be very simple with what our bed preps are. You compost the soil. You use woody compost. And the best compost you can possibly use what's been gathered from your own backyard. You put it right back into the soil, and that's what you do your compost. That's what you mix in the soil. We need to break the clay soil up. Clay soil is like a stack of plates sitting on top of each other. It's a platelet. It's microscopic. It's extremely hard to get water into it. It's extremely hard, and with the high pH, it will not exchange nutrients into the plants that the plants need. So we have to break it up, and we have to get some organic material in there. So you use woody organic materials. And we don't use bat guano. Where does bat guano come from? But where does that come from?
South America?
Well, yeah, it comes from a cave environment, right? So we're stripping the cave environment, killing that environment, killing those insects that those bats rely on. We're killing that, so we're killing environments for bat guano, for God's sakes. And we ship it over, and we pay gas to do that, right? And we pay people to ship it over on ships. We pay people to bring it over on planes. What sense does that make? We've got to get back to common sense. We've got to get back to doing common sense in our gardening. We've got to get back to doing common sense in our practices, any kind of outdoor practice, any kind of adventure we go on. We've got to get back to it because we've got to reverse what we've done. And we've done a lot of damage, and we're doing a lot more damage. We haven't got there yet, but we're starting to reverse it. And we can teach concepts to reverse it a yard at a time or a garden at a time. then we can start working on this. If we can go into South Dallas area and feed the people, in North Dallas, far North Dallas that don't have it the same way. North Dallas doesn't have food either. There's a desert also there. So we're working on all these food desert areas. We got to feed the people as we're going, but we can't poison the world while we're feeding the people. We've got to do it all together, and we've got to be sensible with what we're doing. This is a sensible way. Prepare the planting side. So if I'm planting this, I'm putting mulch out in that right there. I just mulch the beds really heavily, and that's sheet mulch beds. I'm going to go real quickly on how we do the sheet mulching. We go real fast on all that. But sheet mulch beds, I do not till. I do not break carbon up from the soils. The atmosphere is 70% carbon. Where do you think it's coming from? It's coming from us breaking the soils and putting it right back up there. That's where carbon comes from. Release of carbon, all bioproducts of carbon going right back in the atmosphere. Too much carbon in the atmosphere, and we're having to exchange an odd exchange, and it's not working very well. So we do sheet mulching. We don't break the soil up. We don't till anymore. We've got more and more farmers and production farms not tilling anymore. They're just kind of basically putting their beds together, coming in, they're chopping the old produce and the old greens, and they're just letting chop and drop. That's a permaculture practice. We just let it go back into the soil. It feeds the soil naturally, just like somebody does in the tree. Nobody would ever, who waters a woodland? Who waters the woods? Who tills the woods? Who weeds the woods? There are no weeds in the woods. Weeds don't belong in the woods. You got to figure out what goes with what and everything else. If a plant doesn't work in a woodland or in a forest, if it's not working, if it's not giving back as much as it's taking, it goes extinct, it's gone, and they're already out of there. Something comes in and takes its place that can exchange out. Because in the woodlands, we'll have the big trees, the cover trees, that provide shade for the understory trees, right? So we got the big trees, we got the understory trees. Under that, we'll have some vining sits up. Some vines that'll go through, and those vines will go through and they get deep and they'll capture nutrients, and they'll pass nutrients along the soil as they're capturing the nutrients. We've got herbaceous plants that grow along the ground. They'll shade the soils. They'll keep moisture in the soils. We got deep root accumulators. You know all those tap roots, those things that grow, those long tap roots? They tap into the ground and they'll capture minerals. And they go in and get minerals deep into the soil, and as they're bringing it back up, they'll release minerals into the soil. So they're working together. And then the legumes, all the things like the red buds and all the native legumes. You know, if you're going out on these little wildlife areas, these wildlife walks, you see those beautiful little red buds. You ought to kiss those red buds, because those red buds keep nitrogen in place, because that's what they do. They keep nitrogen in place. Mexican plums are coming up now. You'll see some beautiful, beautiful native plants around this area that we just walk by and don't even look at. What we're doing is we're starting to use them in the landscape now. We're starting to bring them into as landscape plants and use them in the landscape to do their job in the landscapes, to actually feed the landscapes as they go. We also do what we call food gardens. That's a peach tree right there growing in that garden. That is a grape. That is a Valhalla grape. I grow grapes and everything right in those food gardens. So part of the decoration is there, but we're going to put food in that garden too, and we're going to feed it. A lot of it feeds my chickens. I know that, because they walked in, they'll get their share. Pookies walk and get what they get, but that's okay. I plant a bunch for them to get them too. But we're starting to mix these cultures things up. So I'm putting, out here starting these gardens, we're starting to put Swiss chard out. Swiss chard is a wonderful plant, beautiful perennial plant, great high energy, high nutrient plant. You just harvest it from the leaves, and they'll keep growing and keep growing and keep growing. It's beautiful. Don't use some of these other leafy, like a hosta. Hostas don't work well in this climate, but you can use the shell. You can use that, and you can eat it. So what's better? It's a win-win situation. You eat the stuff. Soil amendments, very simple. We're going to go real quick. That goes in the soil. See that compost? That's a wooded compost. It goes into the soil. Expanded shell, that's actually heated shell. It's heated, it pops like popcorn, it makes holes, and if I mix that into the clay soil, what I can do with that is I can break up that clay platelets, and it's like putting marbles in a jar of pennies. I can water, and then the water will go through it instead of just sitting on top. Because usually clay's just like a jar of pennies. You put a jar of pennies there, you water it, and it sits there until it soaks down. Well, I can break that up. That's what expanded shell is. I can't talk everybody about it out of tilling. We don't go with the agenda to try to talk people out of things. What we try to do is teach you the best practice ways to do it. And if you're going to do it, if you're going to use synthetics, then we're going to try to make you use synthetics properly. Use it and not overuse it, because that's what we get. We get too much use of these things instead of doing it. So we can't talk you out of it. What we can do is we can help you do it better, and we can help you do it properly, so it's not going to poison everything you're doing. Landscape mixes in between. This would be in the soil. So if I'm in a woodland, if I'm walking out in a woodland area and I dig about 1.5 feet into the soil, I'm going to find compost. That's what I'm finding. That's that dark, rich, beautiful smell. Very, 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 very earthy smell, but it's beautiful. When you smell it, it makes you feel good. I can promise you compost finish does make you feel good. We touch the earth. We're part of the earth. Whether we know it or not, or whether we want to be or not, we are part of it. Getting into the soil and digging in the soil and smelling cut grass, Smelling fresh plants, we're part of that. It releases endorphins. That's a science. I teach science. I don't teach anything else. So that's what it does to us. It makes us happy. It makes us feel good. And that's what it is. That would be 1.5 to 2 foot down. Sometimes the forests are so far that could be 7 or 8 foot, 10 foot, 12 foot. You'll have a compost layer. If you come in about 6 to 8 inches, you're going to have a landscaper mix. It's going to be mixed between the mulch, which would be the leaf and sticks and animal poop droppings. And that would be what you'd have there. And then on top, you'd have the mulches. You'd have its limbs and sticks and leaves and everything else. That's how it stacks up. Soil's built from the top down. It's not built from the bottom up. It never is built from the bottom up. But the practices over the last 100 years have been till it, and let's build it from the bottom up. And it's just, we're paying for it now. We're paying for it with too much carbon. So that's the big issue there. But soil amendments are important to know, and it's important to know how to use them properly. Bed types, I'm going to go real quick. Kill and till is typically the way to go. You can strip the sod, they'll till it in, they'll put the mints in, but we're helping people not do that anymore. Those are sheet mulch beds, which that means is, what I do is I'll cut the grass really low, I'll lay cardboard on that, so that'll start, what that cardboard is, it will kill the grass under. What that grass is going to do is it's down, it's going to decompose. And all that nitrogen, grass is about 75% water and has 2 or 3% nitrogen, that's grass and weeds, so it's breaking down underneath that cardboard and it's opening up. But in that grass, if I leave that grass in place, it's got deep channels of roots. And as it decomposes, it's opening those channels of roots, and as those channels open, all that compost is going into those channels. All that organic matter is going into the channels. And there's nothing that likes cardboard better than earthworms. Earthworms absolutely love to eat cardboard. Are earthworms good to have? Bugs are good. I got news for you. Bugs are really good to have. We need the bugs. We need the insects. Snakes are good. Lizards are good. Birds are wonderful. And I don't buy the stuff. They peck, I get this all the time. Well, they come and they peck my stuff. They peck my stuff. So I said, then I'll go through it and I'll kind of go through diagnostics with them. Well, have you had any insects issues? Oh yeah, I had this over here, so I sprayed everything. So I've killed the insects. What are the birds going to eat? What are they going to eat if we kill the insects? Leave the insects alone. They're not going to harm anything. We got IPM. I'll talk about IPM in just a second. That's a process of where we need to leave things in place. If I've got snakes and I've got lizards and I've got toads and I've got insects and I've got birds and I've got everything else, I've got a very happy ecosystem and nothing's dying in the system. Because nature doesn't kill itself. It doesn't work that way. It all works together symbiotically, so everything's going to work in a circle. And if I keep that circle going and keep everything alive and healthy, I don't have issues with them. They don't eat my tomatoes. They don't eat my plants. I've got bunnies. My bunnies in my acre, I've got an acre back here that's fenced in. The bunnies actually in that garden right there, every year, I have cottontails that come out there, and they will put their babies underneath my pepper plants. So the babies will come up underneath the peppers. Every year I get to watch baby rabbits grow. 2 or 3 sets of baby rabbits underneath my peppers. What this means is, what this happens is, if they're in those garden beds and they've got those babies underneath, they're not eating the top dressing. They ain't killing themselves. All that over top, they don't eat any of those vegetables in that garden. So should we just let them have the babies in the garden? I love to watch them play every morning. They go out when I'm out. I usually go out about 4:35 and it's dark and I'll run into them. They'll run across and things. But when it comes light, they will come out and they'll run around out and play in the morning. And everybody wants to kill the rabbits off. And when you mentioned something very, 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 these things are being pressed to starvation. Where are they going to go? Where are they going to go? It was their territory first. I promise you, they were here before we were. Where are they going to go? We're pushing them, and then we think they're the invaders. That's not the way this thing works. But you can have them in these systems, and they don't tear up your systems. They actually benefit your systems. They live under my barn. Most of the bunnies will do. I got 2 or 3 families that come out and they'll nest, but they nest in raised beds under the pepper plants, which it's very surprising because you'll see, and I can tell now because I see the fur. Because before it was like really surprising because I was harvesting peppers and there'd be a little face looking at me and I'm going, oh. And at first it kind of startled me to see that little bunny face, and I said, okay, I get it. I get what they're doing here. It makes a lot of sense. They're protecting the babies and they're not eating the green, so just leave them in there. But mulch, this is, we're going to go real quick. We don't have a lot of time for this, but go into this and look up sheet mulching. That's a great way to build beds. You'll build good, solid beds. You're keeping the carbon in place. And carbon translates to nitrogen, so we want to keep it in the soil and not go in the air. So you're doing good. It's a good practice to do. Double digging's another way, where they only dig down about 12 inches. They put it in a wheelbarrow. They put compost and put it back in. This is much less offensive than tilling. When you till it up, you kill all the microbes, and you kill all the insects, and you kill all the worms, you kill everything that's in that soil. The microbes and the mycelium, the fungi are what we keep alive. If we don't have fungi, we're not living, because fungi attaches to the plant roots, and actually it's the plant roots absorb nutrients. They can't absorb them without it. The microscopic root hairs have to have some webbing to help them connect all this water and all this food, this nutrients, because they'll connect all the nutrients as a soup. So they have to have that. So we kill it when we till. This isn't this expensive, so double digging's good. Y'all can Google all that. Those are bed types, just raised beds. Traditional raised beds are the way we go with schools. That's the way we go through all of our vegetable gardens now in raised beds. Because in raised beds, I can keep everything in place. I drip irrigate. We'll drip irrigate the beds here. So I only saturate those beds enough to where it only goes down about 6 to 8 inches. So I'm not watering anywhere but the beds. I'm not watering. Everything will be covered with mulch because soil should never be bare. Where's bare soil? We're the only place on earth where bare soil is.
Desert.
Exactly. And who made the desert? It's not natural systems. We made it. We made the deserts. It's not a natural system to be bare soil. Soil should be covered up. Soil wants to be covered up, but if there's no capacity or no plant life to cover it up, it's gone and can't be that way. So everything around it's mulched. We mulch around all of our beds. Not only can I keep all the carbon in place here, so when water runs down, I can capture carbon and it'll be reciprocal into the beds. I can keep this. It's all no weeds. Weed competition's gone, so it helps out. This is a composting. These are my chicken coops. It's a composting coop, which means that those floors in those runs, the open runs, are deep compost. I never have to clean them. I never change them. It's just a natural forest floor system. Chickens are jungle animals, and they're built to be on wooded floor. They're built to be on a woodland floor and a jungle floor, so they're built to be in sticks and all this kind of wood mulch and stuff. So what I do is I'll build coops on the hill them up around that coop. You know what that is right there? Those are blueberries. So I grow blueberries in a place you can't grow blueberries, but I can grow them because they're actually tapped into that coop. And they've tapped into, you know what that is? That's a Gala apple full of apples. I can grow there. So what we're trying to translate these kind of situations into, if I've got a little area and I want a little urban farm and it's got a slope on it, I want the chicken coops pooping down the hill. That's all that is. That's what I want. I want them pooping down the hill into my corn or into my food. Does that make sense? It's common sense. It's all common sense, isn't it? There's nothing about this that isn't common sense, and it's science of it. If they're doing it and it's coming down, then all my vegetables are capturing all that nutrients. There's nothing hotter than chicken poop. It's a great, great nitrogen igniter. It's wonderful in the garden. Now, in the actual coops themselves, I have seed in the coops themselves. I have pine shavings that goes directly into the compost pile. But all these plants tap into that, and I've got pollinators for my berries. So everything's pollinated too. You got to think a bigger picture when you're putting these ecosystems together. I plant in my orchard. I've got an orchard myself. I've also got orchards for A&M. In my orchard, I plant almonds. Now, you don't produce almonds as much, but almonds are very early. They come out very early. They'll come out with flower very early, and that's where I'm feeding the bees. Feed the things you're living with. Feed the animals too. Think of this plant as for them. Whether they ever get an almond or not, that's fine. But I'll tell you what, right now it's covered in bees. And the bees are going to translate into the pollinator of the peaches and the apples when they come out, the pears and everything when they come up. So there's a big picture thing. If we just think a whole, think what all works together. This is one big system. And quit thinking about this little corner patch that we have here. And start thinking about everybody in this place and everybody that's in the community. Then we're going to be a lot happier. And we're going to actually make this thing work. We can make it work, and it is working. We have a lot of great things. This is the gardens again, all mulch. You got to mulch everything. Mulch the planted areas. So that's my kitchen garden. That's where the bunnies live. They live in this bed. They'll come in this bed. I have 3 sets every year of bunnies. This is a transitional phase. I'm just keeping vegetables alive. If you're doing anybody do vegetable gardens? Keep something alive in the garden all year long, and you'll never lose your fungi. You'll never lose your mycelic webbing in that bed. So basically, this is transition. This was the broccoli. It's going down. I've already headed the broccoli. I've already started doing it. And this is the tomatoes coming up through the broccoli. I've always got something growing in there. I do not cut the roots. I leave the roots. If that's a healthy plant, if these plants are healthy, nobody cuts the roots of a dying tree. Trees fall over, the roots open up, and the roots open up channels. So what happens, that tomato, when I cut those off, those roots die, and those tomato roots go back into those channels and capture the water and capture the decomposition of organic matter. So does it make sense? Of course it doesn't make sense. This is how nature works. If we work like nature works, these things all work together. So this is all mulched area. If it's not grass, it's mulch. And that is a mixture of grasses, because I certainly don't fertilize it. I just cut it really, really low and let it go. But I don't water it either, so it's there. So mulching, very important to mulch over their beds. Holds moisture, prevents weeds from germinating, keeps all the soil, keeps it cooler in the summer, keeps it warmer in the winter. It does exactly what we want it to do. You can come in and you'll have your seedlings come up a little early in the wintertime. So it does exactly what we want. Encourages microbial insect colonization, benefits for the soil. In every landscape bed I've ever designed, I put in stumps, and I put in logs, and I put in somewhere in the decorative elements, I'll decorate around the log, or I'll decorate around stumps or tree trunks, because that brings in all my soil beetles and all my soil. It brings a lot of insects that actually go and burrow into the soil. It looks great, it looks neat to be around it, but it serves a purpose. As it decomposes, it's like a big sponge. So when it rains, it captures all this water and it holds water, and it'll leach the water back into the garden. And it looks good. So is that a good practice to do? I mean, that's nature. If a tree falls in a forest, it's going to break down. It's going to decompose. The forest floor will eat it up, but it acts as a big sponge as it starts breaking down, and it captures water and leaches water back in there. So it just basically woodland forest floors are just big lakes underneath. There's lots of water underneath there, and that's why they can be perpetual. They're not sustained. Nothing's sustainable. Nothing stays the same. Sustain means I'm staying the same. They're self-perpetuating. They will change. And if we took all the highways out, when we got highways around all these areas that are wooded, those wooded would go right over the highway. Because you see in the woodlands, I always like to look at, if you're going out in the country and you're looking at these wooded areas, you'll see all those little undergrowth trees that want to grow out this way. That's what we cut back. Those would be self-perpetuating. So it would grow and it would mature and it would change. Everything changes. Climates change, obviously they're changing, but they've always changed, and they're changing now, and they're changing again. You can deny it if you want to, you can hide your head if you want to, but it's always been that way. To say it doesn't change is ridiculous. That's stupid. There was dinosaurs once walked the earth, right? What happened to them? Where'd they go? Something happened, something changed, something changed out. So we had a climate change. We can hide, we can do stupid things and think stupidly, but it's not going to help us in the long run. Mulch types. Bark mulch is, that's the slow, that's a quick release. Hardwood, cedar, those are just 3 types. If you use cedar mulches belong in conifer woodlands, where insects are different, evolve differently. Because what cedar will do is cedar will keep some of your good insects out of your beds. And it's a selling point. That's not a selling point, that's a stupid point. I want the insects in the bed. Well, they do, and that's what they'll sell it as. Like the Bradford pear. Anybody got a Bradford pear? When Bradford pears came on the market, I was just in the nursery business 40 years ago. I just got in the nursery business. And Bradford pears came in the market. And the big selling point was they're insect resistant. No insects want to live in them. That's great. Terrific. So no birds want to live in them either, right? So I got all these insects swarming around, no birds to eat them. So it shouldn't be insect resistant. It shouldn't be insect proof. Nothing should be insect proof. It should have insects in there. You should be if you've got an area that you've got leaves dropped and you got a lot of mulch and compost and you're digging in it and a little garter snake or ribbon snake comes out of it, you should be tickled to death. Because he's eating the water bugs. He's doing good stuff for you. He's a good thing. He's doing a good job for you. Leave him alone. Let him stay in the garden. He's not going to go after you. You're too big. You're not going to eat you, but leave them in the garden. Leave them in the garden. Leave these things in the garden. Leave the lizards in the garden. Let them go. Watch the birds and enjoy them. Have some fun and take the stick out, okay? Do it right. Low water irrigation. Low water irrigation is what we want. We want slow drip irrigations. We want to water all of our beds slowly because we don't want to just pour water everywhere. We want to make sure that the water actually is captured slowly into the soils. This is basically, that's one of the schools, that's Gray Elementary, that's parents putting in irrigation systems. That's a saturation grid. So with about 5 minutes of water, I can saturate our beds, and we can saturate these beds, so we put slow water irrigations. Anybody use Oya pots? Oya pots are ancient technologies. Ancient pots, they would throw a pot, and this is way, way back. This is, I don't know if it's Mayan or not, but it's basically South American type where it came through. Early South America, they'd throw a pot in light heat, and what it would do is it would be porous. So you had a pot, you put water in it, and it sweated out the pot. So what you do is you bury it, you put a top on it, you bury it, you keep water in it, and it sweats it out. And that way you can have it sweat slowly. I do this in some schools. Most of the schools I worked with couldn't afford the Oya pots, so we took 1 gallon water jugs, and we pinpricked them all over the jug. It did the same thing, where the babies could put them in there and the water would leach out, and they would actually leach into the bed, so we could slowly water the beds over a couple of day periods. So that helped us on the weekends when nobody was there. We could fill up the water jugs on the weekends, and then they would leach out. That's what Oyas do. Oyas will. You still have to go fill them up. There's a debate for filling them up or just watering the garden. You're standing there with the water hose anyway, so go figure. But if it makes you feel good, do it. You're happy with that. But low volume irrigation. We want the water to water very slowly. That looks like that's not intravenous. That's not intravenously feed them. Those are 2-liter bottles. They're slow dripping on the wet vegetable beds. Again, you got to fill the water bottles up. So I don't know about that. This is actually 2-liter bottles cut in half, put right in the middle of the vegetables, and then just fill them up and let the water leach out. You can buy a little nipple that actually is 1 gallon per hour emitter and screw it onto it, and it will leach the water 1 gallon an hour, and it'll leach it all out within a couple of days, but it's a slow water release too. That's kids. This is how 3rd graders work. See him? He's got the shovel. At least he's got the right end of the shovel in the ground. Had to teach them that first, but you see Papa digging, all the kids watching usually is how they worked out, but it was a lot of fun. I was very blessed to be able to, I retired 10 years ago and got to teach for A&M for the last 10 years. 7 years I've been with kids, teaching kids how to garden and teaching kids how to grow food, teaching kids how to cook. We do gardening, and then Fridays I teach them how to cook. So we go in and do cooking classes and stuff. So I've had a great run with this one. This has been a lot of fun. Slipper, those are just irrigators. Slow water, slow drip. You see how slow they drip out? That's 1 gallon per hour. That's how we want to water our beds. So when you got your beds, you don't want these rotors. You don't want to shoot water up in the air, because nowhere is water. No place in the world could you shoot water up in there that would be efficient. It's just going up in the air. Most of the time it's windy days and it's not even getting close to where you're watering. So what are they going to do? They're going to water more. I'm not getting enough water on there on a windy day, so I'm going to water an hour. And I'm going to just shoot more water out in the street is what I end up doing, and that's what happens. So we got to slow water irrigate. Conduct audits. City of Dallas will come out and audit. If you live in the city of Dallas, they'll come audit your lawn for free. So these people that have to use these rotor heads, sometimes they're using them. Those don't get any water. This gets all the water. But they'll come out and audit. You put out audit cups and you measure out what water you've got in your cups, and it's more efficient that way. This has no brain. This should be always, never should have had a clock on it. It always should have been, I water when it's dry. I'll go push a button and water for 10 minutes and I'm going, I leave. It should have never been, they are, because that's what people want. But people aren't smart enough to water is a problem. You got to be smarter than this, and these guys don't know anything. These water timers, they don't know anything about it. But soak and cycle. If you water with rotors and you're watering outside your lawns, water for 10 minutes, go through your cycle 10 minutes, let it rest 10 minutes, water again. That way, at least it gets a chance to soak in. You're saturating, you're topping the soil with a little wetness, then you come back 10 minutes later, which if it runs a cycle, it will come back about 30 minutes to an hour later, water again and water again 3 times, and you'll get more water deeper into the soil if you'll soak and cycle watering. All this is available on the website, and I'll show you the website and everything after that. So that's number 5, fertilize based on soil tests. That's the hardest thing to get people to do, is just to get some soil tests in there. Most of the time, if you got clay soil, you're going to be nitrogen deficient. You're going to have everything else in place. You don't need to put everything out there. But we go to the store, we go to the home centers, and we go buy 25-10, and we go by high, or 10-10-10, 13-13-13. You put more potassium in the soil, more phosphorus in the soil. It's already got a ton of soil anyway. It's already there, and it can be released. You put too much, it won't release anymore. Nitrogen is what's hard to get into the soils. So do a soil test. Soil tests, we do these on all the gardens. That's Harris County. We got them for Dallas County. Just go out, collect some soil, get a soil test, and that's where you fertilize them. Don't just fertilize to fertilize, and don't just fertilize because your neighbors told you to, or your friends told you to. We're teaching Master Gardener class, and I got one student that sits there, and she tells me, I'll say something like this, and she'll say, well, my friend told me to do this. And my friend told me to do this, so yesterday I told her your friends are dumb, get new friends. Because they're not helping you. And I finally got to that point. I'm telling you science, guys. I'm not lying to you. I don't have an agenda. I ain't selling you nothing. I'm just telling you science. You can do it or not, but if you do it, you're going to be happier. And if you do it, we can clean up some things. We can get things a little cleaner. But I get it all the time. People want to argue about it and you go on to websites, and websites are wonderful. And you go on to YouTubes. YouTubes are great unless it's an agenda. You've got this, I'll do this and do this, bring this in, do this and do this and do this. And it makes no sense. Do the simplest form. Think about what happens right out here in these woodland areas. Limbs drop, leaves drop, animals die, and things poop and pee. That's basically it. Permaculturists pee in their garden all the time. That's what they do. That's part of the thing. We go pee on our plants because that's nitrogen go back into the plants. Well, that's what happens in nature. Now, I don't go around peeing, and I don't suggest doing that in the gardens. I'm not suggesting that. But they do, and that's this kind of, they take it to the extreme, and people take things to the extreme sometimes. And when you take it to the extreme, the people that are teetering on the brink won't teeter your way. When you get an extreme view of this, they're going to say, well, they're stupid. They're on this team, and they're not going to be that way. They're not going to be with us, and they're going to help us out and clean up with us because they're on that way extreme. So you got to be careful, and you got to filter the information you get. Fertilize based on soil tests. Don't just fertilize to fertilize. Integrated pest management. This is the biggie right here. This is how we manage things when we actually have pests. First of all, what is a pest? You got to figure out what a pest is, because 99% of those things out in your garden, they're not hurting anything. They're out there helping you. They're benefiting you. They're doing good things. Well, IPM is an integrated system. So what I got to do, if I prep the soil properly, And I pick out the right plants for the right place. That means the right water requirements in this guild of plants. So every plant in this bed takes moderate water at times. We know they're all watered together, so one won't be overwatered, one will be underwatered. The overwatered is going to always get fungus. The underwatered is going to always be under stress, and we'll get bacteriums. You get all kinds of diseases. That's how we get diseases in nature. Plants can fend off any disease if it's healthy. Plants do three things. They have to make babies, they have to eat, and they have defense mechanisms where they can fend off any kind of disease in a healthy environment, as long as they're healthy. If they're not healthy, they're just like us. Immunities drop, or some systems drop, and they get disease, or they get insects that actually will do damage. Most of the time in really healthy forests and areas, they don't have the insect, they don't have the problems and the issues. So it's a multiple system. Plant the right stuff, prepare the beds right. What is that? What's it doing? That's good, isn't it? That's good, isn't it? But you know aphids anybody grow butterfly weeds? You know aphids on a butterfly weeds help that weed synthesize certain proteins? So aphids are good on a butterfly weed, aren't they? Are they good on our tomato plant? Probably not as much, because they suck the juice out of it. It won't get as much sugar in the tomatoes. But again, it's where it belongs. It's where it belongs and where it helps and where it doesn't help. If you got butterfly weeds, you know in the summertime you always have aphids on it. They cover it, but it's a different aphid. It's a little different aphid than these aphids. So it's an aphid. It's sucking juice out of that plant, but it's also helping us. It's also helping synthesize things, so when those monarchs come through, those monarchs get full benefit because it's got a partner. It's got a partner in crime with those little aphids. So you got to know what you're dealing with. Know what a pest is and know what a pest isn't. You got to use, and you got to understand threshold. This is the big one right here. Is that damage enough to spray? That's spinach. I could eat that, okay? There's thresholds. Meet a threshold on here. If you got issues with that, then you don't need to be having spinach. Don't grow spinach, because you can eat that. That's fine. A few little insect, and more than likely, that amount of damage right there, they're passed by. They're passing and gone, because birds or insects will just pass through, and they'll pass through, take a bite, it's a little buffet, and they'll go on to the next place. They're not going to stay there. They don't hide out there. They're not going to hibernate there, and they're not going to lay babies there. They're not going to make eggs there, so they'll bite a few. Don't spray when you see it. Now, is that threshold damage on a tomato plant? Are you eating the leaf? Is there enough photosynthetic tissue left to make tomatoes? Probably. It's probably okay. It's probably going to be fine. Your tomatoes are going to be finished in the summer anytime. Let them finish off. Pull them half colored. Do not spray if you got that damage. That's not enough damage to make a big effort, to make a big deal out of it. Had it been half that tissue gone, there'll be sugar problems. It won't be able to synthesize sugars enough.
Squash bugs.
Squash bugs. We don't grow squash right now. We just don't grow it, and that's the truth. And I'll tell you what's happened with squash bugs. The same thing would happen to rose rosette, and the same thing can happen with our crepe myrtle bark scale. Anybody heard of rose rosette? Going through the roses, we planted so many, so close together, we just invited it. So many people planted so much squash that the population of predator is huge. It's very high right now. If we can bring down the population of the actual prey, which would be the actual food sources, the population of pests die back naturally. Things will take over naturally. We've also oversprayed the bugs that eat them and got the birds out of there. We're chasing the birds away with the sprays, and the birds are what would help us with these pests. Squash bugs are just there. You got two. You got squash bugs and vine borers. So in spring you got them, and in fall you got them. And if you keep fighting them, you're losing battle. And they spray and they want to do it. You can trap, but you can't trap. You don't know when they're there to trap them necessarily. So there's things they say you can do. You can go on the internet and says, well, look at the traps and do the traps. You got to be there exactly when they're there. If you sit out in your garden night and day with a little helmet on and you got your little light on, you look at under the leaf, then you can do it. Okay, you can trap them and do that. But if I see you out there, I'm going to call the police on you. We're going to get you in a hospital and get you some help if you're out there worried about trapping them. Don't plant them. Just buy them in the store right now. Okay. There's sometimes we have to punt. We're not giving up the game. We're just changing gears here to figure out until we do it. Because we're not trying to develop new insecticides for this. We don't want to develop new things for this. We want to get rid of it and get it done. Just a few more. We're about done. Yeah, we're going to be done. Yeah, we are. We'll get it out of here. We're at 7 now. It's only 10, so that's good. That's not too bad, is it? We're going pretty good. Thresholds are important. That's the IPM system. Best environment. Get good, healthy plants. That's a bad plant. This root balance, no good. It's going to always be under stress. Get good, healthy plants. Know what a healthy plant looks like. Monitor. Look at here. Look at the boys. They're monitoring. That's our staff in Dallas County. And they're monitoring plants. What they're looking for is spider mites in that limb. And that's spider mites. If you get them early, you can wash them out. You see that little webbing start early. You see that plant start changing a little bit of a color in summer because it's got to be dry. It's got to be dry and it's got to be hot. This is tomatoes and peppers, a lot of things. All your junipers, if you got any kind of junipers, they get in there. But if you see some coloring changes just lightly, you can look in the crevices right here and you'll start seeing them. Those are the mites and that's the webbing. You'll spray them with water 2 or 3 times, they'll start getting to another environment. You can out-spray them, but you can't do it one time and expect it. But you got to get them early before they're infested, before the plant actually gets, because they'll suck all the energy out of the plant. They do suck a lot of energy out, their issues. But I'd rather do that. I'd rather water and spray them out than come to something like that systemic. Because systemic is, goes through the plant systems. There's times at the very end where people use chemical solutions, and we'd walk them through it because they think they have to use it. I can't talk you out of it. We're going to try to use organic methods, which are more poisonous and more devastating than a synthetic if you're not used properly, because there's nothing more poisonous in nature. Her venoms are the most poisonous because most of the poisons are made from natural venoms. So they're very poisonous, but we'll walk it through it. That's the last solution in this thing. That's the very last would be chemical solutions. Sometimes they have to do it. If you try to go squash, brother, you're going to have to probably use some of that sometimes, but it's not going to work. It's just go to the store, buy your squash, buck up and buy the squash, and in a couple of years maybe we can go squash again, but we ain't there yet. But IPM's a system. Those are just gardens, the same way built gardens. Rainwater harvest, anybody water harvest? Rainwater harvest, what you do, rain barrels out there. We got cisterns, we put big 1,500 gallon, 2,000 gallon cisterns that capture water. About the 4th week in summer, I ain't got any water. And the thing I want to tell people about it is it's not the cure-all for everything in the world, because that's a 55 gallon right there. In the summertime, do you think there's going to be any water in it? There's not going to be water in it. It's going to rain in spring, so don't use it in spring. You can use it in spring for your pots and things, but you're going to use it up in spring. There won't be any water in the summertime. I had a young lady back a couple of years ago when I was talking about rainwater. She's a sweet girl. She said, in summertime I got water. I keep watering it all the time. She said, I got a solution. I said, what is? Well, when it gets empty, I fill it up with a water hose. And A&M makes me be nice, so I couldn't say much about it. But 2 things I got to do when I teach for A&M. One is I got to be nice to everybody. And number 2, if I take a group of kids out, I got to get 90% of them back. I can only lose 2%, and so I'm taking them on adventures. So I've got to get most of them back. So that's not too bad, but the nicest is what hurts a lot. Rainwater harvesting do harvest rainwater. That's a berry system. The water, we're starting to see that everywhere. That's just an old tarp that they cut and bent. They got rainwater where they don't have any kind of water out there. That looks like a pretty flush area though for that one. But I've seen Trinity Elementary down in Cedar Hill. They had their little garden bed way out. So what they did was took a little corrugated metal and they bit it up and did exactly that, 2 barrels, so the little barrel sits right over the garden, so they can leach that water into the garden. So you can if there's a will, there's a way you can make it work. That's multiple capture systems. Nice to have. Compost, compost, compost. Do not waste anything. Have everything in your gardens. Have everything on your property. Why are we sending stuff to landfills? Why are we sending leaves and things to landfills? I still don't get it. We send leaves to landfill and we go to Home Depot and Lowe's and we buy mulch. Compost. Don't we? We buy it by the truckload. And we bring it home. We're all happy. And we've just sent 50 bags of leaves out. Does that make sense? It's common sense, guys. We got to use common sense when we're doing this. We've got to get our head out and start thinking about these things and start working on it. That's a 3-post compost system. Composting, you know what compost has? It comes out of there. Eggshells are wonderful in the compost. Break them up, let them go in compost. It reduces all waste. There should be no waste in the garden. There should be no waste in chickens either, by the way. The eggs go into compost. The poop goes into compost. Those eggs, inside that eggs went in my belly. So there's no waste in there. I'm happy with that. But do compost and help keep it out of landfills. It doesn't do landfills any good because we're not growing anything in landfills, but in your backyard, keep it in your backyard. Nothing's better than the actual compost you pulled from your trees. Because the way it works is everything that comes down was taken up and it comes right back down in place. It's self-perpetuating. Nature self-perpetuates itself. So all the nutrient values that plant took to grow and that tree takes to grow, when he's deciduous and drops those leaves, it comes right back down in the ground for you and refeeds the ground. So it's a self-perpetuating system. We just have to use it. There's just different type of compost. That's finished compost. That's when you want to put it back on the garden. When it gets to that point, it's not taking anything anymore. Until that point, this is taking nitrogen to break down. You don't want to put that on the garden yet. You want to let that decompose a little bit, but when you get there, then that's one of my flocks of pookies working through the compost pile. They'll help me out. They do all the help. They'll harvest all my green vegetables. If I let them, they'll go through and wipe them all out. They eat all my ground strawberries because in my beds, I'll just have strawberries in the landscape. They tell Papa when they're ready. They'll go take a bite at every one of them and look at me and say, they're ready to go, Papa, eat them. And they'll take one slimy bite and it's all bit and slimy and everything because they've got dirt on them before they do it. But they're great. They go into the gardens. They get my composting. Sound turf maintenance, there's not much that we want you to not keep it, you know, they want to cut this like a turf and like a golf course. Keep it a little bit higher. Keep it a little bit higher and don't, because when you cut it too low, you're cutting off the leaf, which is all the nutrients. And for God's sakes, don't bag it. You know, they bag the grass. I mean, that's all nitrogen. That's 2-3% pure nitrogen you can put right back in the soil if you just leave it in there. Get your butts out there and cut it a little more often. Don't bag it. You know, if they got to bag it, if it's too long, don't do that. Put it back in there. That's the big thing. Mostly water, and then they cut it, and they get it, and then they water it. So, you know, they'll take all the trimmings off. Baggers are the worst thing you could ever do to mowers. That's ridiculous. Don't bag the stuff. Put it back in, let it stay there. And if you let the grass go a little bit, you're going to have less weed pressure. They ain't weeds, guys. This is the weeds. The Bermuda and the St. Augustine, that doesn't belong there. What belongs there is all the clovers and all the chickweeds and all the things you see growing, those beautiful little dandelions. They live here. They belong here. That crap doesn't belong here. That crap should have never been brought here, but we got to have it, don't we? We got to walk through. We got to think it's the most beautiful thing in the world. The ag agent who I support, or the whole agent, Stephen, he's a turf guy, so we fight over that all the time. I always win, though, on that one, because it's that. But dude, keep it there. Don't fertilize it. You fertilize in fall. If you're going to fertilize it in fall to have it where it absorbs and the root systems will get strengthened for the spring. One time a year is enough. I know Scots want you to do it 20 times a year. I get that. I know the fertilizer companies. You go to one of the places, they want it. These aren't bad people. This is just people. This is their living. This is what they do. This is agendaed procedures. When you got an agendaed procedure, it's not always best practice for everybody else and for nature. It's just what they do. But that's number 10. Sound turf maintenance. Sound turf maintenance there would be open up those beds really big and put a little mulch out there, and you'd be sound. That's a sound turf maintenance, and there'd be none of that crap out there. But a little bit of grass doesn't hurt, I guess. I like it for cows. Cows are good for grass. But that's the 10 sets. There's the hotline. That's the staff. You call us, we'll send the boys out. They're out there taking care of a tree right there. That's on the site. But that's my email. Please let me know if you need anything. Thank you guys for letting me come out and visit with you a little bit.
Okay, thanks a lot for that nice presentation. Before we close the meeting, I want to remind you about Sierra Club 101 back in that corner. And then those of you who are interested in going to the Blue Goose, if you show up there, we'll give you some free nachos. The drinks are on you, and if you order food, that's on you too.
It should be opposite, shouldn't it?
Okay.
Give me the drinks, the heck with the nachos.
The meeting is adjourned.